Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, welcome to the October meeting of the East Lampeter Sewer and East Lampeter Stormwater Authority meeting, and I invite you to join us in the pledge of the American flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty.
President of our meeting was Gavin Scaler, Todd Stump, myself, Rick Robinson, Fred Clark, Vinny Patel. Within the township, we got Tara Hitchens, Kim, you said it, Charlie Thomas, Stephanie Leakway. Welcome visitors. We've had the minutes from the September meeting for a couple weeks. Unless there's any additions or corrections, they're going to stand approved as written. We also have Mr. Cici coming in the door here, so he's going to township engineer Matt Cici. Treasurer's report. Sanitary sewer.
Yes, and he good is $4,112.86. As of the end of September, we have a checking account balance of $3,253.69. So for our lease agreement, 15,000 deposited into the checking account. I had $4,112.
We had one requisition, 03-676, payable to Herbert Roland Grubik for work related to the Rockvale redevelopment, Strathsport Pike Sewer Extension Project, and Station 2 elimination. That holds $14,832.98.
Stormwater. Checking account.
The checks that he written in the amount of $298,291.03. Check listed to Apple and Yost that at this time that totally does not include that. We have a checking account balance of $45,671.06. So we will transfer the appropriate funds to pay.
Okay, looking for a motion. For both sanitary sewer and stormwater. Yep. I'll second. Motion in a second. Any discussion? Vote. Aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Okay. Under old business, so under sanitary sewer. DFA funding.
HRG for the pump station fuel elimination project, HRG submitted with PennDOT HRC application for that project. So that's under PennDOT review. We've also finalized the DEP water obstruction permit application. But the board signature on for that application. To form this. Once we have that, we'll work on getting that submitted there for DEP's review.
Is that something that's not gonna be a problem with DEP?
I mean, there's standard permit applications that goes through our process. We're actually not crossing a stream on that project. We're paralleling it. So on that project there, we're within 50 feet of the stream, so we have to. Over the next month, we'll be working to finalize the design of the project drawings and project manual. And get that to staff. And I know that Solicitor Cream in his office, their assistant will act as the easements required for the project.
Hopefully that's not where we sent the letter to Mr. Nisley.
Well, Mr. Page mentioned, and he was recently. The address is supposed to be 2020.
Did have representatives of the HOA and the property management company presented the project to them that they. We're going to discuss that with the property, the HOA board there. Schedule. Put it in the packet just for continuation for knowledge.
You're talking the Oaks HOA.
Correct. Strasburg Lake Sewer Extension Project. HRG revised the drawings to shift the line of that sewer outside of the culvert. We submitted the revised PennDOT HOP application to PennDOT. And we've also finalized the water construction first application. So we would like to get the chairman signature on that. We will hear after the meeting, and we'll work on getting that submitted to the. Here we are crossing Mill Creek with a trenchless crossing and boring. We're also crossing the unnamed trib. So if there were comments, I think DEP would have more comments potentially on that one just because of the method of crossing. Similar but drawings, project manual, we have one. I did put in your package, just copy of the easement. This says. This is we can get those comments incorporated, but we will. The legal description meets and bounds. You just want to make sure that we have them come on before you do that. What I would say is had previous discussions last month with county staff on contractor access through Floyd Park. So I'd love to do more of that now. How the contractor can, what route they should get through Floyd Park, access to the work site on that side. So, identify that and put an easement document together to put temporary construction easement for performing the work. Oh, I'm sorry. Question about it?
Nope.
Very correct. The South Lake Station 1.1 project. Contractor returned last week to start the lining work on the second half of the wet well. And I just got informed on the way down today that that work's been complete and kind of back the pump station back in operation.
Sounds good.
I'd expect next month we'll have a invoice from the contractor for the and the only other thing to note with the CFA funding are financial that they're working on submitting to CFA will be paying for the project. So I would anticipate having that submitted here over the next month. And once CFA reviews and approves that, we would submit the first reimbursement request for the projects that have been complete to date. And then we thought would be after we'd submit another one here once these projects are complete. So 2 rounds of reimbursement requests.
Okay, Mr. Kettle and Meyer.
My name is Joe Guzik. I'm a consulting environmental engineer. I was brought on board, I don't know, but I came down to feature, I think around all this. I've been at the facility for touring, meetings with them, meetings with the regulators, including DEP. I was hired after it was discovered by the township that oil and grease was obstructing the sewer. And then that's in the process of being cleaned up, and I understand and agree that there will be a bill that will come to this board, and that will be conveyed to my client, who understands completely that that's a reimbursement. Now, we did not know that most of the clients that I work for don't know that they're doing something wrong. They're just making their product. And then something happens and they realize, hey, just from sanitizing, cleaning up floors and the machines and everything, that there's some grease in there. And when you end up at your discharge every day, like we do, and you've got so many kettles and they're expanding. And it's a health food, so and they're doing things on recycling the oils that they get out, that they see, and they take those out. It's a waste, and they end up that they recycle it with somebody that pays them for it. So it's a nice operation, but you know, sometimes when you're ending up that you're rushing to get into production to meet your contractual agreement, sometimes you don't recognize all the things on the startup that, and some of this is when they end up, I do a lot with DEP every day. So for me, a lot of it is air quality. Theirs is water issues. That's the effluent. And when it goes out, they didn't realize they had a common problem. So then looking at the grease trap, I ended up that I was hired right after the executive director of the Sewer Authority served them with a notice of violation. And it was on exceedances for fog, floatable oil and grease. And that was ending up that it went out as a hot liquid. So no problem, sewers where we were. But 3,000 feet downstream, cool. Now you get the globules that end up that they become an obstruction in the sewer and they build up over a period of time. They've only been in operation for about 6 months. They started with it. But that's a testimony to how much oil and grease you get from sanitization and cleaning up, which is everything for FDA. So we looked at the original design. They have a in-ground tank for grease trap. It was sized for 2,000 gallons as a vessel. And when I look at that, I think to myself, I want a 30-second residence time so that oil and grease can float to the top and be held back from the discharge to the source. Well, turns out that maybe we're ending up that we're discharging too much water and I'm getting low through it. Another thing we found out, because the facility ended up, they hired Eurofins to do daily testing. And I met the guy the other morning over there. I confirmed that he's taking the samples, Charlie, for fog, temperature, pH, TSS, and BOD, which is what we would really look at for to make sure that the sewer authority. Now, we're getting that information back, and what it taught us is that a grease trap wasn't being cleaned out fast enough, soon enough, because it's too small. So they told their cleanup contractor, JG Environmental, local firm around here, who I checked out, is on the up and up, and they're good. They're now cleaning that grease trap out by sucking it dry of all the floatable oil and grease. And then they're ending up that they're going down further and they're taking the sediment out too. Let it have its full capacity. So that's happening twice a week. And as a result, when I look at the results that I'm getting daily, I went from where 50% of the time I'm in violation and 50% of the time I wasn't. Now I end up that I look at this past week, every day's good on FOG. So that's something that I can report, that as we get information, they're reacting to it and doing something about it. Now, beyond that, I filed a corrective action plan as requested by the city, happy to try. And in there, I laid out my short-term and my long-term goals to solve this problem and get out of it. So what I'm trying to do is have an interim quick response. So I have multiple plans on that. The first of which is that we started to deal with a vendor who can give us a rental water pollution control unit class. Again, DAS stands for dissolved air flotation. It's something that I have put 5 of these in the past 3 years, and it's on food. Anything from dog food to tortillas, whatever. It seems like it works very well. And it's a technological advancement where we would take the water from our grease trap and then pump it into a big equalization tank. That equalization tank ends up that as you have flows that are coming up and down throughout the production day, you're getting rid of cleaning. It doesn't matter whether you're cleaning out the kettles or whether you're cleaning the floors and the things, that's going down the drain. Get it out and let it fill up this big equalization tank. So now you get it outside and it's big and it's sitting on the front yard and everything. So it's unsightly for this winter. But I'm going to end up that I'm going to be able to process that from the equalization tank on a pump that will run in a constant amount. I know that just for numbers, my average high is 150 gallons per minute, GPM. Peak 200, that's what we're thinking so far. We purchased flow meters so that we can end up verifying that in the future, but that's like a high number. And that's what's coming out to your sewer authority. So we just don't want to have the crap in there. We're going to end up that we're going to take that through the staff unit. And the staff unit starts with, okay, take it out of the equalization tank at a certain rate. Maybe it's only 50 GPM, but it runs 24 hours a day. And it's automated. We'll end up that we'll have an operator that'll keep an eye on it daily. And we'll have alarms on it so that it doesn't end up going further when there's a problem. It'll back up into the equalization tank. First step is we measure the pH. We got exceedances now on the high numbers. We're allowed by your sewer authority rules to be at 5.5 to 10. So we like it to be somewhere around maybe 7.5. That would be good for us. Maybe even if it goes up when we see some numbers go to 10, Well, that takes care of some of our acid rain, so that's not a bad. But that's the goal from this rental DAF unit is to, first of all, if I have to dose it, sulfuric acid, to get my pH down from 11, which is an exceedance, I want to bring that down. And then I end up that the globules will start to form in the next tank. We'll add some polymer and some flocculant, which is chemistry, just to be able to take anything that's maybe dissolved oil and grease and get it back into an undissolved or a floatable or a suspended solid. And then what you do is you inject in the bottom high pressure compressed air that creates microbubbles that cause a mixing effect. And that mixing effect causes the chemistry to end up working. You get a reaction on the fly. That reaction ends up that it brings the grease right to the top. I end up that I get an automatic scraper that takes the top surface off into a waste material that you get rid of, as that's waste oil, the chemistry in it, and you end up that you take that away in a dumpster. Now you go off that and through a weir, you measure what the GPM is going out to join in with the sanitary, and you measure the final pH. To verify that you don't need a little polishing touch-up. If you do, I'm hoping that I can have that with this rental unit. It seems like it's I have just received the preliminary information, so I can talk to you about it. It's expected to be in maybe 4 weeks or at the most. It's going to come in on an enclosed truck. We have to end up buying the equalization tank. Maybe we have to get some pumps and some meters and stuff, but most of the controls are there. We buy the chemistry, we put it in the DAF, and then we're going to end up that we'll be measuring this. Now, in the meantime, Charlie, I hired the second laboratory, ALS, who you use. And I have them coming out to do 3 consecutive days next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they're going to set up the robotic samplers to take 24-hour composite samples out of the sewer before it joins in with the sanitary. This is going to be only the industrial wastewater that we're sending here, undiluted. And I'm going to run it for the litany of chemicals that are on your list. Now, to get that ALS lab report back, that's most laboratories are like 3-4 weeks. So I'm going to have a delay. By the time I get that back and I share it with you, I'm going to probably have the DAF unit doing a fit up on plumbing, the electrical, and the, I've got a lot of fit up to do on that. So I'm working with the engineer that selected that. His name is Ken Bonner Hayes. And he's going to get that rental unit in. We're going to end up building the infrastructure in the front yard. And then after we clean up the water, which I hope to be in operation before Thanksgiving, but I'm going to say December 1st, okay, just for benchmarking. Once I get that up and running, then we'll repeat it 3 days again. Let's see how we're doing. And then that'll be information that this sewer authority can have your executive director review my sewer discharge agreement application. Because the one that we have now goes back to when the facility was just being built. I mean, nobody knew really what was going on. So that application has to be overwritten by me. And then that has to be supplemented with these lab reports. And then eventually the sewer authority will be able to issue me, because your EPA approved facilities, you can issue me a discharge permit with limitations, monitoring requirements, and reporting requirements. Now, I can tell you, since the initial NOB was issued, it's been asses and elbows over teacups trying to get everything pulled together. In this past week, I worked with these guys to hire 3 more engineers besides me, each of which I've met with to assign them tasks Some of it is regarding the DAF unit and how do we implement this first prototype rental unit so that when we end up doing a design over the winter for the permanent DAF system, where does that go? I might need another little building to be able to put all this stuff into it. Does that now get moved to the back so we don't look unsightly? That's internal piping I gotta change around with a jackhammer on the floor and stuff, so that's all on the table. I have people working on the rental for an immediate response, and then we'll evolve into the permanent response. One other thing about the initial quick response I'm trying to do. We found that there is a chemical that we're checking out, and it's called some kind of a bacterial additive that we could put into our existing grease trap that would start to digest like you do down at your facility. And
They don't have the facility. This all goes through Lancaster City.
Okay.
Lancaster City.
that's right. Thank you.
Township. You had to
Giving you more work to do than you need.
stand Brian Warner all up to speed on all this also.
I called them today to Brian.
Okay.
And I said, I haven't been able to get in Christine. Can you plead for me to be able to get a meeting? I've been after her for about a week at least with emails and phone calls, and I'm just not getting through. He said, I'll set up a meeting for you. I said, I'll come down whenever you can get me in.
So
But I sent him a copy of the corrective action plan.
everyone's gonna enforce everything, so.
Okay, well, that's where I'm submitting my discharge permit application to and playing by their rules. For you guys, I don't want anything blocking up the source, so. Mind you, that I used to be the chair at my sewer authority because I was asked to solve some DEP problems locally. Then I missed a meeting, so they made me the chair.
You know the feeling.
Just say you're bad, Mr. Chair. So anyway, people working on spill control and secondary containment. I know that we had a spill last night at 2 a.m. in the morning. We had some spill control because we've had past episodes. I have a separate engineering firm that they've hired for me that's addressing that secondary containment, spill control, SPCC plans, stormwater. I have another engineer or two who you guys know, and they're working with us on stormwater aspects and stuff like that. So I'm just working with DEP to pull over stormwater construction permit with Adam Stern at the LCCD, and I'm going over to Patrick McGee at DEP so that I go away from construction into a 5-year operating permit. So I have the game plan put together. I'm getting no resistance from the client. I'm not hearing anything as far as these DAF units. They're made out of 304 stainless steel. They're big and they're technological pieces. I would expect this to exceed just in a purchase contract more than $500,000. And then I need to put it in a building that I don't own. So I know that I'm talking about some serious, and I told the CEO, this is the plan of action. This is what you're going to need to do. But I want you to know up front, we're spending some serious coin here. So, and she said, that's fine. No hesitation at all. We need to do what we need to do to be able to be good stewards. We just didn't know that this is what we were given. Now we're glad that you're here telling us what we need to do. Hire the right engineers, get them to do all their designs simultaneously so we can get our arms around this. I'm involved with Charlie on UCC building permits that I'm checking out. Jacob, well, one of his boys. Good team. So he's involved with us on the township as far as getting things done properly. And I'm keeping tabs on the different engineers that are doing stuff so that when we get the designs done, we get the 3 copies submitted with the building permit application and the contractor's POs. So you know how much this stuff costs from equipment, as well as each of the individual trades, for which we end up putting that on the building permit. And then his staff figures out what the different costs are for different things. We end up that we take a check over in this hand and we pick up the permit in that hand, we're posting on the front door. You know, that's the way we play. So that's really where I'm going. I'm here to end up introducing myself and my clients to show you that they didn't know they're hiring all these people. We're in the right direction. I am interested to meet the rest of the gang, which is Christine and Zach, and over at the Source already. And eventually we're going to end up turning it over where Joe ends up that I get to go back to Clark Summit, Pennsylvania. And I have local engineers here that are going to continue on with renewals with you and everything else. And that's my game plan. I just wanted to let you know who I am and that I'm working with the gang to make sure that we do things right.
Sounds like you're doing everything right. And so far, I mean, Fire and Ice or Kettle and Fire have been more than straight with us with everything. I mean, I don't think any of us have one complaint with the direction they're going. Yeah, we thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask what the spill was last night?
Yes, it was hot oil. Here's how we make the product. We have a big 8,000 gallon stainless steel kettle. And you can either put in cow bones or chicken bones, depending on the broth that they're making. And once you end up putting that in, then you end up to put in probably 5,000 gallons of water. And then on top of that, there's a bunch of vegetables. And I mean, what I see is there's everything in there from onions to cucumbers to, I mean, all kinds of stuff that they put in. Now they have nutrients. And then they turn on the steam to a jacket that ends up getting it warmed up to, just below boiling. And they simmer it. They call it a simmering kettle. So it might simmer for 24 hours, or in other cases it might be 40. When you end up to get done, you end up to shut off the steam and go to the bottom. There's a screen to keep the bones in there. And you open up a valve and you pour into the bottom of this tapered vessel the rum. And that goes over to filtration and other things for condensation and concentration. Condensation and concentration. And then eventually that goes to packaging. After you drain out the bottom of the liquid, you got a sight glass that ends up, and it allows the operator to see the color change. That's the top, they call it the supernatant. On the top, it's all the grease. So you end up that you stop that going out with the pump. And that becomes the residual grease on top that you take and you turn another valve, and that goes out to 1 of 3 kettles that's near the back truck. Those kettles are waste oil storage tanks from 3,500 gallons. And on the top of each one is an infrared detector that's used as a level sensor. And when it gets up too close, that ends up that it sends a signal to shut the pump off, close the valve and deadhead it, and it stops from overflowing. Last night, that sensor on Lincoln failed. It didn't end up working at all, and it allowed the pump to stay going, which ended up that it found some way to overflow, spilling on the floor. And without secondary containment around it, it ends up that it let it flow out back door in the truck dock, which went out in the storm. You know how it rained last night. And then after that, it went onto the driveway. Now, that's hot oil. That's hot, so it ends up that it softened up the asphalt pavement. I was out there, you can see the truck tracks imprinted into the asphalt. So it dissolved some of the asphalt and took it away with hot oil, and it went into catch basin for stormwater, which ends up that it has a pipe that goes into the detention basin. It's a large detention basin. I mean, it's very large. It's currently under, they call it, it's a construction term, stabilization. So we're looking for some grass to grow out there and stuff. But in the beginning, when you discharge out into that, they have a technical word for it. It's called a forebay. And what it is it's just a small area where it accepts the water from the driveway. And that this ends up that it's got rock around it. And this small area is meant to be able to take suspended solids out. So if you end up that you have stuff that's on the driveway, let it fall out in that area. You can clean that little bit up, you know? Well, we got to end up digging it all out, take the rock out and everything else now with what we've got is stage. And that's in the process of being reviewed by the building owner. And that's High Associates with his engineer, Ritu. So they're working on that to be able to let me know when they're going to get that done. Then I'm going to end up going out with Adam Stern from the Soil Conservation District and DEP on clean water. And we're going to do an inspection and see if we can give them clean closure on that.
Do you know how much was spilled?
I don't, it's hard to say because when the pump is running, we're taking the oil from the top of the kettle. It could be 1,000 gallons. It can't be any more than 3,000 gallons from my rough estimation. But whatever it was, the stormwater ended up in this. When I went out there, because I was looking for what's going on, you can see the black stain, which is I attribute that to the tar from the asphalt. The stuff that I see as far as grease and stuff like that looks more brown. So whatever it is, it's getting dug out. Oils usually end up, they don't penetrate down into the groundwater, like gasoline and stuff like that. Usually you end up that you think about these things, and especially asphalt. I mean, you can remove 2 inches of the top horizon and you got it all. What will happen, and I'll be checking on, is that Ritu will end up hiring some type of a cleanup contractor to work for them as the property owner. And they're co-permittee per the erosion and sedimentation plan, different things with the LCCD. After they get it cleaned out, they're going to take soil samples. They'll be sending it out for VOCs, semi-volatiles, even traces of boiling grease and stuff like that. But you remove enough that you don't have any visible stains, right? You take the rocks out, and throw those in the landfill too. So what, Then you end up that you after you get clean results from the soil samples, then you put fresh soil down and you make it nice and level. And now you do some plantings and you put some rock, Gabion rock walls around it again. That's all it is. We need that done before the snow flies, right? Get that out of the way, then we can move on. So I have a lot of people working on this, so much so that I can't keep up with the emails coming in on all this stuff that's going on. I overdid it, but the guys at the plant are doing stuff for me that amazes me. I have the right team who's really with it as far as doing their share and accommodating all the different contractors and engineers. And we're moving at incredible speed.
The townships on this work, we need to be made aware when.
Yeah, LCCD sent us a report today. I had Charlie Hayes go out. Yeah,
Like-
The message left on his voicemail about 2:30 this morning.
Thank you.
Also, from my work with DEP, I think that it's important that within 1 hour of becoming aware, I make a phone call and follow it up with an email. So I did that for certain entities like DEP and I think the township. But I mean, like, and then Charlie, who's our guy? John Fletcher ended up that he called it in.
Yes. Yeah, got a voicemail from John.
He called me early in the morning, we discussed it, and then we reached out.
That's a good one.
For, the DAF unit, the discharge from that level, go then back down into, through the grease trap that's there? Or what's the-
No, I think the way that we want to do it is use the grease trap, and it may be a new bigger one eventually. Use the grease trap as the pre-filter. You know, take the load off and take the grease that's easily floatable to the top. Right, we can, you know, and from my other plants that I have, I mean, I try to get it so that it's like every 3 weeks or so. So I get a big underground grease trap, you know, open up and suck it out with a super sucker. And that takes the load off the DAF, which needs chemistry. Yeah. Most of the time with DAF, you end up that you do a pilot study, you find out, well, I need this much money for chemistry and stuff like that. And then you end up that you go into operations 5 times as much and everybody ends up saying, how do we use that much chemical? We don't have that in our funding. So it's a problem with the, you know, as engineers, we end up that we always look at cost and an operating cost. And so we want to end up, we're going to end up going through a grease trap of some sort. Then we'll go through the DAF, the pH, and fog, and that'll be a nice polishing. And what we're hoping is that we can also drop down the BOD, which nobody's talked about, but I know is going to be a problem. That's something that, you know, later on when we get stuff, we have mass limits on what we're allowed to put down to the sewer authority as well as going to the Chesapeake Bay and stuff like that. So we want to end up recognizing all those things. Total night phase, total loss. And then after we're finished with that, we're going to end up outfalling back into another manhole. And then somehow mixing with the sanitary. And then we'll end up that we're going to put it out into the street and community sewers.
So for your initial plant though, are you still going through the grease trap initially?
I presently own a grease trap, small as it is.
Yeah.
And we're ending up that we're doing increased.
But for your initial plan with the rentals, are you still going through the grease trap?
Yes. I own.
And then, just so it's not, I think we're looking at, discharge in, fat pieces and being reduced. But I think, just so we don't forget, there's also the increase in water. For that facility was,
Good point.
but yeah, the EDUs now, they're much larger, so. Having that number as well.
Right now, we end up, we get city water. It's used in the process to make the product. We also use it for sanitization and cleaning. We also use it for sanitary, for toilet waste. And then what's worse is we use it as non-contact cooling water in our vessels. That's a 4-inch line, it's wide open. And when it goes from the city at, you know, like today, it might be 60 degrees. We end up that we put it through after we've heated these things up, and we want to cool them down. And the way that we cool them down is in a downstream set of vessels called vessels, to which we end up that we run the chilled water, that's processed chilled water from the city. And then we get rid of, it might be 150,000 gallons more or less per day. That's a lot of water, and it's not good for the sewer authority. It's chlorinated water. It's not contaminated water. It's in our ordinances. Sewer authority is data down there, takes away from others. So it's something where, you know, like, what is it, a pass-through? That's not supposed to be. So the facility has, previous to this, looked into providing 100% circulation loop for chilled water. And what they'll do is they'll take, say, water to a pump and it'll go into the jackets. And maybe it'll be at something like 80 degrees. They'll take it out of there, go through cooling towers. And evaporate some of the water out to the air. And then the water temperature will drop. And it'll come back and we'll end up that we won't be discharging that 150,000 gallons per day of non-contact cooling water anymore. That does not go through the grease trap. That goes into the sanitary. But we've got to get that out. And so one of my engineers has been able to get us the equipment on site. We are looking for him to provide Charlie's gang with those drawings and structural reviews for putting it up on the roof, and you know how we do that. And then once we get those drawings submitted in through Jacob and stuff like that, we'll end up and we'll get the cost for putting it all together on an application, get a UCC building permit. And then we'll end up, so that we can get operational. Let's see, it's the end of October, so maybe for December 1st, I'm hoping, you know, before we get into the winter, we'll have that up and running. And that'll be a big load off of what we're putting down into the community sewers. Let that be reserved for other people. And it'll be a big thing where we're not buying 150,000 GPD every day from the city. Now, eventually what we're going to do is we're also going to have a different meter, and it's going to be what we're taking from the plant, from industrial wastewater after the fog is removed, plus the sanitary, put a meter on there, and we'll pay for only what's being discharged to the sewer authority, which is the proper way to do it. Know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, I think we have a partial industrial discharge.
We fall under the city.
So, but it can meter discharge. Doesn't have to be in an ordinance.
Currently, I don't believe the township.
The township does not have a meter discharge ordinance at this point. I don't think they do. So what he just said would have to be, we'd have to adopt something like a meter discharge.
That's something actually staff has been talking about. Not just for this project.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying we don't have it now.
You get all that, Vinny, in the minutes?
Do we pay when we do sewage? You know, when we get the bill from the city water supply, that's one thing. But when we go in, there's our community sewers that are owned by our township, and then that conveys into the treatment works. You know, that's the cities. So do you think there's two bills that go out on sewage?
Should be just
Even the industrial, it still flows because
You get
From the townships.
From the township.
City issues the water.
we currently do not have that lets you meter the discharge. We're taking our numbers off the water. So we have to create an ordinance to allow you to meter the discharge, which, as I said, I don't think we're opposed to that.
Well, actually, in Kettle and Fire's situation, we're not even taking the numbers from the water meter,
Based it on employee count.
right?
Oh, you mean with the original?
The sewer.
That's how it's being billed currently.
I know it's being way, way, way underbilled.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
14 ADUs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I know. That's a whole nother issue.
That's because that's the calculations the engineer gave us. Work on.
Right.
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
Let's look
I
at
think
it.
to get on top of it, the final result is that we need to, you know, metering the discharge is the fairest of all to do with that. So. In the meantime,
Well, I have my work to do and I wasn't gonna leave you without, so.
Yeah, if that's something, the metering that we can approve, or does that need to come from the supervisors?
he is for. You approve the connection.
we approve the connection fee. But if there's a discharge ordinance, that would be here. Yeah,
The discharge ordinance, but not a rate. That's it.
oh, because we don't have a flow rate. We just have an EDU rate. Got it. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other old business under sanitary sewer? Hearing none, on stormwater old business, says none. I'm assuming that's. New business under sanitary sewer, it says none.
The only thing I was, board's information, that townships, the sewer maintenance staff, they've been working on maintaining the sewer system and a couple items just to alert you to. The Oaks One pump station, they've been having some issues with the pump there. They've been troubleshooting it. I think they've got it taken care of, but it's been drawing too much amperage and overheating. So they worked with Guard Spot Electrical. They'll troubleshoot that. So they made some changes to it, but they're going to monitor that there. But it was, again, drawing too much amperage for the motor overheating. So
The towel and the impeller didn't help.
Okay.
That's the whole.
that's one item. And the second item is on Route 30, in front of American Music Theater. They replaced work line over there and stuff, went some long hours, and replaced a couple manhole covers that were deteriorated. This is a section that the authority had done. But they found that they're getting some pretty severe sulfide attack. It's really corroding, eating away the metal. So maybe something they want to investigate further, looking up and downstream there. I know they're also investigating chemical addition upstream in the low pressure sewer section there at Soudersburg to try to help mitigate some of that H2S development as well. So
Yeah, if you remember 20 years ago, that you installed a bioxide system at South. And so we moved it to Lancaster Mennonite School. Now this hydrogen sulfide count is getting so high from the eastern end of the township down around Soudersburg, it's actually eating holes in the cast iron on the manholes on Route 30. So we're looking at possibly additional bioxide system at Soudersburg again. That could help with the hydrogen sulfide while it's in the low pressure and dumping into the gravity, and then Lancaster Mennonite
Is
picking
that
up.
a Soudersburg pump or is it between Soudersburg and?
It's between Soudersburg and 896, where 896 is where it dumps gravity. So it's,
But treating it at Soudersburg, you think you can control the rest of the way out?
helping the anaerobic conditions in that low pressure system. So you're just introducing a chemical in there to give the bugs another food source, to try to mitigate the production of the sulfide, the bacteria that create hydrogen sulfide. But I think looking at the other manholes is something I think as they get an opportunity, they want to investigate just to make sure that there's no other serious corrosion.
We found those two manholes there right in the lane of traffic and the tractor trailers.
It's not concrete.
It is the concrete
Is it eating the concrete?
up around where we had the concrete donuts. They replaced them with the rubber guys donuts now when they replaced these two castings the other night. So it's pretty potent.
So it starts it fast.
Yeah, but yeah, I was surprised they showed me some pictures that it actually had a full seat in the cast iron.
Nothing down the line that is causing that, is there?
I think it's a factor of that long, low pressure system. That's the right environment for that to be created, for that anaerobic conditions to occur. So it's a nature of that sort of system.
Are you asking if there's any industry down?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is it pretty much running a sanitary.
Restaurants.
So, okay. Right.
Any other new business under sanitary sewer? Business under stormwater, storm sewer lining project.
So as the authority is aware, we have been utilizing funds each year to do videos on sites in the townships. That's been a 2-year process thus far and continues. We had then looked at all of the video to determine where lining could take place or where replacement would be there. So put that out to bid for 2 sections not out to bid, also the CoStar contractors. And for 2 sections of the township, the first is in the northern section of the township and the second would be in the south of Stephen Greenfield area as a later phase. And so those 2 quotes came back. You'll see Mr. Rehab coming back at $865,877 and Able Recon coming back $922,945. We did have David Miller Associates look at these 2 and they are comparable quotes for the work that's to be done. And so we would recommend that the authority proceed with the refund. All of that work would be done this year. There's $1,229,000 budgeted for this work. The other work that would be taking place would be a replacement of the road so that paving can happen next year. And that was one that was found to need to be replaced. I believe that was 31 feet in length.
Correct, that was completed last week.
And so we've been videoing those streets that we know are on paving plan projects for the following year so that we can get the work completed prior to paving.
Okay, this is for 6,000 lineal feet, approximately how many feet in this?
440,000 feet.
So this is a drop.
We figured probably close to a 10-year project. About a 10-year project. Once you start the video and you wait till we get enough information for at least 2 years, that's when we start the contract. So just keep.
This is all on footage that's been videoed.
Correct.
Now, any cross bores that we found, we've made the utility company that did the roof. Repair them.
Is this with everything we've seen so far, or is it difficult?
So this is the worst in those two areas. Would you agree, Charlie?
Yeah. Agreed. Greenfield, there's a lot of bad pipe in there. There's some that's going to need cleaned, but we won't have money to budget this year to do all. So what we're paving next year to make sure we don't have any dig up and then move into the industrial part.
And what's the projected out? Why?
Just like the sewer line or the sanitary sewer, the 50 years.
We're constructing a new pipe in the existing pipe, so. Can't have a 50-year lifespan.
Turning the old corrugated metal pipe into a PVC pipe.
Source of that's shallower than sanitary, so it has a higher. It's getting higher.
Okay, looking for a motion to accept Mr. Reed. Mining project.
Make a motion, we'll award Mr. Rehab the scope of work to reline 6,037 linear feet of pipe at an estimated project cost of $865,870.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Any other new business under stormwater? Any other business? Yep, motion to adjourn.